Hey guys, Spirit of the Law here. In addition to the new Mountain Royals DLC that's coming out on October 31st, we'll also be getting a pretty large patch that day, affecting many civilizations, and it applies to you whether you buy the DLC or not. In the last video, I broke down the two new civilizations as well as the total revamp for the Persians. And in this video, we're going to set the DLC aside and see what the existing civilizations are getting in a couple of weeks. Jumping right in, let's start with the handful of generic unit changes. The first is the Elite and Imperial Skirmisher as well as the Geniteur are getting a buff to their hidden attack against Spearmen. This is unblockable damage, and there's a pretty well-enforced counter-triangle between skirmishers, spears, and light cavalry in the late game, mostly enforced through bonus damage, but also minimum range, and this is just making that even stronger. In many cases, this will mean elite skirmishers need one fewer attack against halberdiers, going from 10 to 9. The next change is Battle Elephant base movement speed is being increased from 0.85 to 0.88 tiles per second. Technically, this crosses the threshold of Battle Elephants with Husbandry being slightly faster than crossbows, for example, but seems like it's probably too little to notice the change in practice. Next, monks are getting a couple of changes to remove exploits. Moving forward, conversion attempts have a 1-second warm-up to disrupt villagers who are working on a task, which the devs note is to prevent spam-clicking villagers with a monk to deny them from building, say a castle. As previously, as soon as they were targeted, a villager would try to run away automatically and stop whatever they were doing. Monks will also no longer be able to charge up on a building and then instantly convert a unit they switch to. These were advanced techniques that were very clearly unintended. That's it for general changes, and now let's move on to the civilization-specific ones. The first is for the Celts, who are going to gain ring archer armor. They still lack Arbalester, Thumbring, and Bracer, so I don't think this makes them a scary late-game archer civ, and instead I mostly see this just helping their elite skirmishers. Next up is for the Japanese, who get a brand new civ bonus, giving cavalry archers +2 attack against archers. Japanese cavalry archers are always a bit funny, as they're fully upgraded but never had anything special. Enemy archers can be a little annoying to deal with, as practically it's much easier to mass crossbows. This bonus means they're taken out in 5 instead of 6 shots though, so you'll get better trades once you have your ball of cavalry archers. This won't give them the best cavalry archers or anything like that, but situationally against archer civs or an infantry/archer civ like Vikings, this is a nice option to throw in. Next up is a pretty big overhaul for Magyar Hussars. Their HP was increased and their training time sped up, while their cost was changed from being almost entirely food to now a majority gold. This is arguably a buff in the mid-game, as gold is easier to collect than food, and usually you don't have a shortage at that point. Paired with this, the unique tech making Magyar Hussars cost no gold is going to turn the gold cost into food, essentially putting them back to the 80 food that they were anyway. The net effect is they're not really impacted in the late game, but are stronger when non-elite and significantly easier to build up in the mid game, meaning we may see them more often as a Castle Age unit instead of just appearing in the late game as a pure trash unit. At this point, they're technically cost-effective against knights in Castle Age, though 2 stable knights is much smoother and faster to get rolling than a castle, and is where the faster creation time might come in, being created now at slightly more than double the speed of a knight. Either way, it's a really interesting change, and the timing of when you switch their cost from 35 food and 45 gold to a straightforward 80 food is a little more nuanced now, and you have to factor in the relative value of those resources to you in real time, knowing once you make the switch off gold for the unit, you can't go back. Moving on, the next alphabetically is Persians, which I included in my breakdown of the new DLC civs as they're kind of new, or at least majorly overhauled. I won't go into the same level of detail here, but if you haven't seen that video, basically their cavalry archers are getting some love with Parthian tactics 1 age earlier and generate 5 gold when killing an enemy military unit. Their cavalry also get that passive gold generation and are having their paladin replaced by what's essentially the same unit with a new skin, but with a lower upgrade cost, making it easier to transition to with your cavaliers. They're also getting access to the Hindustani's Caravanserai. Their prior unique tech Mahouts is being given to elephants basically for free, along with a cheaper war elephant upgrade and more bonus damage against buildings. Plus, they have a new unique tech, strengthening their castles. Top down, it's almost straight buffs for Persians, and they almost seem like a new civ at this point, with cavalry archers and probably war elephants going to be more common to see. Persians are a little below average these days heading into the patch, but come out of this looking like a much improved civilization. Personally, I love what are effectively reskins of existing units with slight tweaks, and the Savar replacing the Paladin reminds me a lot of the Polish and Lithuanian Winged Hussar, giving just a little twist and reskin on something already in the game. Speaking of Poles though, they have a very small change, losing access to guilds. Guilds is probably better than it often gets credit for, especially when picking it up before market prices drop. But considering Poles get free gold out of their stone piles, I think their late game is already in a good spot. They seem to do best in long games, so this is targeting a strength and not beating up on an existing weakness. Next up, for Romans, they're having a small nerf to the Centurion, which instead of giving their swordsman line plus 25% or plus 33% faster attack, from now on it'll just be plus 20%. The movement speed bonus is unchanged, but I think this is part of the philosophy of Forgotten Empire's studio, which is to release new civs a bit too strong to encourage players to try them and make up for a lack of build orders and experience, which, to be clear, I don't consider egregious pay to win, and instead I see it more as them just trying to make the civs exciting to try out. Now that players have a bit better handle on them, and Romans have been consistently near the top of the ladder in terms of win rate, the slow trickle of nerfs seems to have started, with the last major patch also nerfing the Centurion's HP a bit. Next up, while Persians get the most attention for having an overhaul, Saracens are sneaking in here with some pretty notable changes of their own. First, their camels having plus 10 HP bonus is being changed to plus 25%. The Mameluke is then gaining plus 10 HP, but Zealotry is being removed, which remember gave all camels plus 20 HP. That's a lot of HP changes to keep track of, and it's not immediately obvious how this all shakes out. So to put it into perspective and summarize the net effect, the camel line is basically the same, losing 5 HP on the camel rider itself, but the heavy camel rider ends up exactly where it was before. The Mameluke though is gaining a tiny bit of HP across the board. And it might seem like a whole lot of nothing until you remember you're getting basically the same end result without the 400 food and gold cost of Zealotry, while also getting the HP increase for those units instantly in Castle Age without building a castle first. So I consider this a strict buff, even if their Camel Rider is technically a bit weaker, as it's that much smoother to tech into and to use to counter knights in Castle Age. Remember, Mamelukes no longer take anti-archer bonus damage as well as of a year ago, so they're quietly getting quite a bit better over the last couple of years. In addition, the devs have always flirted with Saracens as an unofficial monk civilization, previously with Saracen monks returning 33% of their gold cost at one point. It seems they're going back in that monk direction now, with a new unique tech replacing Zealotry, which for a pretty low cost lets monks passively heal 75 HP per minute to any unit within a 5-tile range. This is on top of your usual healing, basically healing things nearby at half the rate they would if they were being directly targeted. Now, of course, this doesn't stack, or you can imagine how crazy an army of monks would get when instantly healing each other passively. If it works with multiple text mod though, you could probably get a taste of that instant healing. Saracens are bottom 5 at the moment by win rate, so a buff getting their camels up to speed faster and trying again at a monk identity, I think makes a lot of sense. And finally, the last change is for the Slavs, who are getting their faster farming bonus returned back up to plus 15%. This is where it used to be, but in Definitive Edition it was nerfed. Whether because of simple power creep throughout the game, or because they don't like Slavs as a slightly below average civilization at the moment, this is another pretty notable buff. Their knight spam and boom were always great with this bonus, and it instantly makes Slavs a much better cavalry civilization. So that's the October patch. Of course, there's the new civilizations coming as well, which again I covered in the last video on the channel. I wanted to make this its own video though, otherwise it would be very long to do all of it together, and I know not everyone is interested in the new DLC. That'll do it for this one though. Thanks for watching guys, and I'll see you next time.